election, you'll lose your seat.
First time I've ever joined a political party, and you're it, mate.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people your age say when they voice an opinion that they support Brexit, they kind of shout it down for doing so, which is outrageous. Thanks for your support. I appreciate it. You going to vote for us next week?
I guarantee.
You going to support us?
Yes.
Going to vote for us next Thursday?
Definitely.
Going to go and do it next Thursday?
Exactly.
You're going to go and do it, yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I was doing deals all around the world. The world was so much bigger than Europe. And we need to reach out to them.
We have a vital role now. This is a truly seismic moment in history. Big question, of course, is can we trust Boris? We must not let him sell this country down the river by reheating, rehashing, and repackaging the worst deal in history, that dreadful withdrawal treaty.
Please welcome to the stage, Richard Tice.
Southport this evening. What a fantastic evening it is. It's fantastic to be here. Our 5th regional conference. Not only is Southport home of my favourite racehorse, Red Rum. I know I'm that old. But it's also not far from my favourite football club, Liverpool. Oh no. Oh, that went better than I thought. I knew I'd get some boos. It's generally on the left. I'm just the warm-up act, really. Unbelievable to think, isn't it, that just 22 weeks ago today, the Brexit Party launched in a family factory in Coventry. We stood on a simple slogan, changing politics for good. And I hope you'll agree that we've made a reasonable start. Because, of course, when we launched that day, we launched with just 6 MEP candidates, including a sister of a famous brother in the Conservative Party. 6 weeks later, we'd won a national election. In fact, we didn't just win it, we absolutely smashed it. We got 50%. We got 50% more votes than any other party, and this is the bit I really like. We got more votes than the Tories and Labour put together. Which meant incredibly, and there's a certain irony in this, we're now the biggest political party in the European Parliament. Now, we've been hired for a job that we want to be fired from as quickly as possible. Not many people can say that. But of course, events are moving incredibly quickly, and that's why we've called this regional tour the We Are Ready tour. Because what we've clearly seen in recent weeks is that we have to be ready for absolutely anything. When we launched just 2.5 weeks ago with our over 500 approved and vetted prospective parliamentary candidates, brave men and women, we thought we were getting ready for a general election in late October. Here we are, just over 2 weeks later, and Parliament's played its usual absurd, ludicrous, ridiculous games, and we have no idea what is going to happen next. We don't know if there's going to be a general election this year, next year. We don't know if there's going to be, God forbid, a referendum before there's a general election. But one thing is for sure, we will be ready for absolutely anything that Parliament throws at us. And what's fantastic about the quality of these prospective parliamentary candidates is that they've been prepared to put their head above the parapet, to take all the grief, the abuse, the brickbats that people throw at us. And it's wonderful that there's, I think, about almost 50 candidates from the Northwest who are here this evening. Please be on your feet and let's give them a huge round of applause. Because, thank you folks, because, Nigel and I are truly humbled at the quality of candidates up and down the country who have put their name forward because they fundamentally believe that we need to change politics for good in this country, and we need to, most importantly of all, restore trust in our democracy. Now, I mentioned that we think we've made a reasonable start. Having won that European election, there was some really good news. The first thing that happened was that we got rid of the worst Prime Minister this country has ever seen. And with her gone, we also got rid of the worst, least talented cabinet this country has ever seen. And then, of course, the Tories, they had a bit of a leadership challenge and, debate and all sorts of stuff. And we've now got Boris. Well, the big question, it's a lot more interesting listening to Boris than it was the previous incumbent. But we need to get serious for a moment. The big question is, ladies and gentlemen, do we trust Boris? No. Say it again. No. That's the key point. We really are very anxious. There's an opportunity for him to do the right thing, but at the moment, we're very concerned he's going to do the wrong thing. At the end of June, we had our big vision rally. 5,000 people, the biggest political rally for over 25 years in Birmingham, when we announced some of our first policies. And it's extraordinary how the Conservatives, bereft of their own ideas, they've literally copied almost every single one. We said we would scrap HS2 so that would save 100 billion quid so that we could invest that money into the regions that have been deprived of infrastructure investment, local road and rail schemes, including up here in the Northwest. We also said, and then having announced that we wanted to scrap HS2, the Tories suddenly announced, they're going to review it with a view to scrapping it. When we talked about investing in the regions, Boris said he wanted to invest in the regions. We said we wanted to invest in digital infrastructure and free Wi-Fi on all public transport. And surprise, surprise, you guessed it, Boris started talking about exactly the same things. And so it went on, indeed, so short of ideas. They've even copied the way that we do our videos on social media. Anyway, that's dear Boris. He needs a bit of help. And Nigel will talk later about the generous offer that we made to him. I talked about our parliamentary candidates, and I think it's just good to see on the video the backgrounds, some of the candidates that we have got standing for us all over the country. So hopefully the video will work and we can just see this now.
In just a few months, the Brexit Party has some amazing achievements. We've reset the political agenda, got rid of a hopeless Prime Minister, and made the option of a clean break Brexit the most popular one in the country. But now we face our biggest challenge, to fight a general election across the entire United Kingdom. And we are ready.
54% of people of Leicester East feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm here to give them that voice. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said they're never going to vote again, because how can you trust the political system now? People just want common sense, people like them representing them. And that's where the Brexit Party is firmly positioning itself. It's just a party of regular people like myself who want to get involved because we care, and then make sure that this sort of betrayal can never happen again.
People voted for something completely new, voted to go out into the unknown and try something completely different and reclaim power back. We all have a stake in it, and I'm one of those people.
Even though I'm an ordinary person on Exmoor, running the Exmoor Pony Project, living an ordinary life, I just felt that I had to be part of it. We've stepped up because we simply have to defend and safeguard our democracy, and we're here.
From what I've seen, a lot of the Brexit PPCs now are just from normal backgrounds, just working class people who care about people as well.
I think there's a lot of commonality between a politician and a doctor. Consultation always begins with listening. You listen to what the person has to say, take on board, and then help them and make them realise that actually they've got control. They've got the power to decide their future and what to do and what not to do, and they're not helpless.
I'm just a normal, hard-working, working class person, but I think taxi driving has given me an insight of how people live, and you get to learn their issues because you become their agony aunt. I tell the taxi driver everything.
I am ready.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I'm definitely ready.
I'm ready.
We have an extraordinary cross-section of people from every walk of life making a stand for democracy. They will be our candidates at the forthcoming general election, and we are ready.
Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Fantastic. You see from that video, real people, hard-working, achievers, doers, successful people. I said it during the European elections that I believed we had the highest quality of candidates that have ever stood for public office. The prospective parliamentary candidates that we've got were selected from a rigorous interview process. We had 3,000 applications, each of them looked at by 2 people, over 1,400 interviews, therefore arriving at over 600 approved candidates. So the quality is absolutely fantastic. I still believe that this group of candidates, again, will be the highest quality that stand in the forthcoming general election, whenever it is. And we've got a great list of speakers. I'm just the warm-up act, as I say, after me. The first of which is the candidate, the prospective parliamentary candidate for Southport. Born and bred here, studied here. He's also our youngest candidate. He's absolutely motivated. He's a real star. He's brave. He's courageous. It's wonderful to have him. Please give a huge welcome to Darcy Iveston-Barclay.
Good evening, fellow Brexiteers. Welcome to Southport. My name is Darcy Iveston-Barclay, and at 19 years of age, I'm privileged
to have been selected to stand for Parliament here in Southport. I am equally proud to have been born and live in this town. I grew up in Churchtown. I attended Birkdale High School. My grandparents lived on Old Park Lane. Southport's situation is similar to that of Britain in Europe. Southport pays its local taxes to Sefton Council. It is then passed through layers upon layers of bureaucracy, finally ending up in the local community. Exactly the same thing happens in the European Union. There is no value for money. I'm standing here today, putting myself forward to not only improve the value for money which my fellow Southport residents receive from their taxes, but to rid the UK of the leaking sieve that is Brussels. The Brexit Party has given me, a young man, not from the political bubble of Westminster, nor from a fancy private school, the opportunity to make my voice heard and stand up for my local community. I want to see Britain, no, Great Britain, restored to being a proud, independent nation governed by people we elect, by judges who have the British system of justice as their inheritance, and the ability of industrialists and financiers to trade in free and open markets. We are constantly told that all Brexiteers are all stale white males. Well, I challenge those Remainers to truly look at the people the Brexit Party has brought into politics, some for the first time in their lives. I am a prime example of this party's diversity. I am 19 years old, from a mixed heritage, and believe in Brexit. It is my future, our voices, that a little gang of Remainers in Parliament want to deny. And it is up to us to make sure they are stopped and democracy is delivered. Thank you very much.
Isn't it great? Darcy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you a tip. Watch this chap. I think he's going to do rather well in life. But Darcy's going to need your help, because he's going to need your help campaigning, canvassing, so that he can ensure he gets enough votes, as well as all the other local prospective candidates. So we need you to be in touch with the regional organisers, the candidates, offering your help, so that we can really make sure that we get out the vote on those election days. Whether it's a referendum or whether it's an election, we need everybody's committed help to ensure that we do win. And that brings me on to my next speaker, who is one of the 3 MEPs elected for the Brexit Party here in the Northwest. His day job, he's a very skilled dentist. He's also, that went down well. He'll give you his card afterwards. He's also a former trade unionist and committee member for the Dentists' Union, although I'm not sure they're quite pleased that he joined the Brexit Party. But there we are. He might tell you about that. Who knows? Please give a massive welcome onto the stage to our MEP, Henrik Overgaard Nielsen.
The thing about being a dentist, I know we sort of rank somewhere between parking attendants and tax collectors. But anyway, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Richard. And thank you all for coming tonight and supporting the Brexit Party. 2 weeks ago, I visited Fleetwood to find out more about the fishing industry in the northwest. They still process a lot of fish in Fleetwood. Many of our local fish and chip shops will be supplied by companies in Fleetwood. But the problem is that 99% of the fish that is processed here comes into Fleetwood by truck. The haddock being filleted when I was there came from Norway. So why foreign fishermen catch fish in our waters, land the fish in foreign ports, and then send the fish over here to be processed beats me. But Parliament does not want to talk about that. Instead, last week we saw MPs holding up A4 pieces of paper saying silenced, because they felt that they didn't have enough time to change the will of the people. We are the silenced ones. No Brexit, no general election. How dare they? There are now 3 possible outcomes to this mess we're in. The first is leaving the EU on WTO terms. The second option, Theresa May's disastrous deal, or I suppose what we can call Boris Johnson's rehashed disastrous deal, the Brino, Brexit in name only, European Army, European Court of Justice Control and Customs Union. After last week's shenanigans in Westminster, there is not a snowball's chance in hell that the EU will change anything in the deal they have already offered. And the third option is cancelling the result of the 2016 referendum. And that is what Labour and the Lib Dems want to do. John McDonnell had more front than Brighton Pier sitting on the Andrew Marr show saying that in a second referendum, no deal would not be on the ballot paper because he doesn't think it's a good option. Well, 17.4 million voters voted to leave the single market and leave the customs union. So Labour's arrogance and self-importance has reached new heights. Labour will renegotiate with the EU and then put the deal and Remain to a referendum. But they will campaign for Remain. So where is the incentive for either Labour or the EU to negotiate anything, let alone a better deal? How stupid is that? Talking about democracy, I have to say that going to Brussels and Strasbourg has only made me more against the European Union. Let me tell you a short story, more Dracula than Snow White. On becoming an MEP in May, the EU sent me over 100 pages on how I could claim taxpayers' money for all sorts of things. I can have language classes, private health care, and best of all, not just for me, but my whole family. In addition, I'm given £4,000 every month for an office, which does not include staff salaries, by the way, only rent and office equipment. No receipts required. And when I asked how I repay the unspent money back to the EU, I was told that there is no facility to repay the money. Rest assured, I'm keeping a tab, and monies unspent will be given to a UK-registered charity, or maybe to the Brexit Party. So when the people of the Northwest are trying to make ends meet, pay the rent, and put food on the table during times of austerity, Brussels has definitely not felt the same pinch. The European Parliament is very proud of its green credentials, but when the next Lib Dem or Green tells you how the EU is vital to protect the environment, tell them about the 130 limousines that are used to transport MEPs around within the city limits. The reason these limos are not electric is because every 4 weeks they have to drive the 270 miles from Brussels to Strasbourg and back to satisfy the French government and their insistence on there being 2 parliament buildings in 2 separate countries. And the limos can't be electric because there aren't enough charging points on the way. You really couldn't make it up. Parliament itself is a Mickey Mouse parliament. To be able to speak in Parliament, you have to apply 2 weeks in advance, and if you get chosen, you get a 1-minute slot. So there's no debate, no discussion. It is a set piece for the benefit of the YouTube or Twitter audience. The European Union is not a place where we can improve the lives of working people in the Northwest. It is not a place to improve the environment or the economy. Bring democracy home. On a personal note, since I put my family's head above the parapet, I have been insulted, I have told to go home to Denmark, and have been called a Nazi. Well, let me say this. I come from a background where my father went underground for 4 years in the Second World War and was the voice of liberation on state radio when Monty liberated our country in 1945. I come from a background where my parents started the anti-EU movement in Denmark in the 1960s. And I come from a background where I was part of the campaign to halt the Maastricht Treaty spreading across Europe when it did not have the mandate to do so. So I bow to no one in my belief in democracy, free speech, and self-government. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. I mean, it's only now, thanks to the Brexit Party, that we hear the truth, the horrors, the abuse, the excess of what goes on in Brussels and Strasbourg. And now to our next speaker, another member elected for the Brexit Party to the European Parliament. She's the director of the Academy of Ideas. She's a regular commentator on BBC Radio 4. She's an absolute star, a tireless worker for the Brexit Party here in the North West. Please give a massive welcome, Claire Fox.
after those speeches, I feel very humbled, and I just wanted to thank Darcy, because if it wasn't for him and other activists around the Brexit Party, I'd never have got elected. It was them that I am standing here, that I owe my credit to. So Darcy, cheers. As Henrik mentioned, on the evening that Parliament was prorogued, the Remain Alliance booed and chanted and held up signs saying that they'd been silenced. What a sick joke. For the last 3 years, they haven't shut up. They've gabbed and they've blathered and they've bleated, all to block and delay Brexit. The Commons has been full of noise and bluster, getting louder and louder as a crescendo of their voices have been used to gag us, the electorate, and deny that our voices are heard. Those same MPs bleating on about being silenced only hours earlier had used the law to silence us by voting against holding a general election, which would have allowed us to have a say about their disgusting behaviour in blocking no deal, i.e. a proper Brexit. I think what so many in the establishment hate about Brexit is it allowed us to have a say. And we said, this is what we think. My voice matters just as much as yours, and I demand that you listened. But those politicians, those technocrats, so long insulated from the electorate in their committee rooms and their hermetically sealed echo chambers, have used the law courts to put their hands over their ears going, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. And all this shutting us up and shutting us out, I believe, is because they think that the electorate will get so fed up of Brexit and the delays that will accept any kind of exit or non-exit, just to end their incessant whining. It's like those who demand a second referendum, the usual EU stitch-up ploy. They assume that we voters are exhausted and disillusioned, and that if they ask us repeatedly over and over and over and over again, eventually we'll give their right answer back. It's a bit like a kind of metaphorical beating so they get a false confession. Now, it is true, by the way, that we're fed up. I'm fed up. I'm fed up with being sidelined. But I think we're also furious and we're fuming. The public, I believe, are biting at the bit to pass judgment on that shower of MPs in Westminster. By delaying the election, I think that they hope that we'll have forgotten their betrayals. They think if they throw a few policy sweeteners at the regions, then we'll all just simply fall into line. But I think the charlatans underestimate just how exposed they are. We can see in plain sight the state of mainstream political parties and what a ramshackle mess it really is. The traditional party system is in a volatile place at the moment and everything is up for grabs. Brexit has already irreparably damaged the cosy party system. We have the misnamed Lib Dems, half of whose MPs are unelected defectors. Jo Swinson now thinks a second referendum is a moderate compromise, so she has illiberally and anti-democratically proclaimed that she's going to revoke Article 50, and that's disgrace to democracy. We have the SNP and Plaid Cymru who claim that they want independence, but are then begging Brussels for continued dependence on big Europe. We've got tough-talking Brexit Boris, a true blue conservative who seems to think that he can waltz into leave-voting Labour constituencies with what I fear will be a tweaked withdrawal agreement and take working-class activist voters with ease. All despite decades of Tory policies that have socially obliterated those same communities. I'm sorry, but the Tories don't own Brexit Party, even led by Boris. No party owns Brexit voters, and that includes the Brexit Party. And no one should, and we certainly don't, take any voters for granted in any way. But equally problematic, I think, is a Labour Party who scoff at Boris and say they're our voters. They will stay loyal. But for me, Labour is almost the most treacherous of all the parties. A party whose very democratic traditions were built by the likes of Tony Benn, Peter Shaw, Bob Crow, and guess what, Jeremy Corbyn, who actually to be fair, historically, give him a break, he used to be on our side until he was leading the Labour Party and then he wobbled. But those people actually over the years knew that exposing the EU as a front for an affront to democratic accountability and popular sovereignty was what the Labour Party should do, and now they've given up. Now we've got a Labour Party so desperate to compete with the Lib Dems that they're refusing to represent or listen to the millions of its own voters who voted Leave. You've got Emily Thornberry, whose idea... I knew I'd go popular at one point. Whose idea of choice is a bad deal they've negotiated in bad faith or remaining. Now, Corbyn says he'll do anything to stop a banker's Brexit. Now, the irony here is, guess what side the banks are on? The banks are on the side of Remain. And I thought it was amusing recently when the Financial Times declared that they would be prepared to have Corbyn as the Prime Minister just to stop us leaving. You want to see how messed up politics is today? Meantime, Labour Leave voters, trade union activists, community champions have been some of the gutsiest fighters against the austerity caused by the financial crash that those same banks helped create. And for those of you who still think, and I know there are many, well, Corbyn's policies are worth voting for despite his Brexit betrayal, here's another irony. The EU will block his economic plans anyway. To finish, the Labour Party, indeed all parties, claim they want major social policy changes. But they have shown, if they've shown us anything, that they're all really scared of radical change. Because Brexit is the radical change. And what's better, it was voted for by the majority of voters at that referendum. But none of the traditional parties have the bottle to allow it. Last night, I was speaking at a Liverpool Leavers event. They've got the bottle. At that Liverpool Leavers event, it was announced that there's going to be a Southport Leavers event, a Leavers group set up. Alistair's somewhere in the room, he's going to set it up. I hope you all get involved. They've got the bottle. We, the voters, have got the bottle. We, the Brexit Party, have got the bottle. This is the party of radical change. The party of radical change is here, it's now, and it's you. However tired we get, however disillusioned we get, we have started a radical revolution in politics. We're changing politics for good. They think they betray us, that'll be short term. We are here to stay and everything will be different from now on. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Claire. Have we got the bottle, ladies and gentlemen? That's what we want to hear. Wonderful. And so to our next speaker, the third MEP for the Brexit Party here in the Northwest. A doctor of medicine, someone who's absolutely passionate in healthcare, how to improve the NHS. He's a truly committed Brexiteer. It's great to have him with us here tonight. Please give a massive welcome, Dr. David Bull.
good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot tell you what an honour it is to be your MEP, one of 3 MEPs for this region. As Richard said, we are now the largest single party in the European Parliament, and I can tell you the 3 of us, plus Richard, plus the 28 colleagues, we are fighting very hard to make sure that your voices are heard, and we are keeping up the pressure so that we leave this dreadful institution of the European Union. Now, do you remember the referendum? It was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the largest ever democratic vote where 17.4 million people voted to leave. 3.5 million people here voted to leave. And yet, we are still in the European Union, despite politicians on every side saying they would respect the result of the referendum, and they triggered Article 50. We are still in it. But why is that? I can tell you why. We underestimated the bully boy tactics, the dirty games, the underhanded tricks that are being played by the establishment and by the media. And what's more, Remainers will not accept that they lost. We won and we are leaving. They are now desperate, and Project Fear is back. And as a medical doctor, I cannot abide what I am seeing. They are trying to frighten people by saying there is going to be a shortage of medicines in the event of a no-deal Brexit. They've gone up further. They have said there will be a serious impact to your health, and they have even said that people may die as a result. It's rubbish. This is not true. It is not acceptable, and it has to stop. Now, we are up against some very powerful lobby groups indeed. I want to show you this. This is the British Medical Journal. It is sent to every doctor in this country every single week. This is this week's. It says, "No deal, the health risks of Brexit." But when you read it, there is nothing in here that actually substantiates the fact that there are risks to a no-deal Brexit. And I'll tell you why. Because medicine does not revolve around the European Union. Medicine is global, and medicine is flexible. Europe needs us as much as we need them. We trade with Europe, so we already have the same standards as Europe, and therefore mutual recognition really shouldn't be an issue. Pharmaceutical companies are based all around the world. Many have footprints here in the UK and also in the EU. And we have some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in this country, and that industry is worth £42 billion. But let's look at where medicines are made. A third of the world's medicines are not made in Europe, they're made in India. By 2050, half of the world's medicines will be made in India. And if Europe doesn't want to sell us their drugs, we will buy them from places like the United States, who are very keen to sell us their insulin, their biosimilars, and many other drugs as well. And if we do leave without a deal, we will go to trade on World Trade Organization terms. This is how most of the world actually trades. That means there are 0 tariffs on thousands of pharmaceutical medicines under pre-existing agreements. But we could also have an interim agreement which would abolish tariffs on all drugs. And very quickly, I want to tell you, in Brussels this week, I actually approached the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries. I said to them, is there a problem in the event of a no deal? And they said to me, no. There has been a huge amount of no-deal planning. There are many workarounds to ensure that drugs will be available in the UK, and we will have mutual recognition procedures. So the drug supply should not be in any danger. And yesterday in Brussels, I met with 3 pharmaceutical companies, all of whom are French. I said to them, I am concerned. Is there a problem? Will you still trade with the UK in the event of a no-deal Brexit? And they laughed at me and thought I was bonkers. They told me the UK market is too important for their business case to avoid. In short, what I want you to go home with is this message, that actually these are scare stories. These are scare stories by Remainers who want us not to leave the European Union. So I say, no more spin, no more prevarication, and for goodness sake, stop playing with people's lives. Let's have a clean break Brexit and build the UK into the powerhouse that it really can be once we leave the tentacles of the European Union.
Isn't it great, David? Thank you so much. I told you that we in the Brexit Party, we tell the truth. Henrik told the truth about the excesses in Brussels and Strasbourg. And you've heard the truth there from David. A complete and utter demolition job of the nonsense that is perpetrated by the whingers, the Ramonas from the other side. What they're saying about medicine. It's garbage, it's gibberish. Tell your family, your friends of friends, it has got to stop. It will all be absolutely fine. I'm involved in the world of business. Companies want to trade with each other. They want to make profits. And of course, those French companies want to keep selling drugs to the UK so they can make profits. And as David quite rightly said, what we want in the Brexit Party, we want a clean break Brexit. What? Because when you get a clean break, then you can take advantage of all the opportunities that Brexit gives us. What we don't want is what we fear Boris is up to. And that's why there's such a huge question mark about trusting Boris. Because we fear he wants to rehash this terrible, terrible withdrawal treaty. Now, hopefully everyone's had a great summer, and you probably didn't spend summer rereading, at bedtime, the withdrawal agreement, 580 odd pages of the wretched thing. And I can understand why. I'm one of the sad people that has actually read it. And I'm just going to sort of summarize just how bad it is. Even without the dreadful Irish backstop, even without that, ladies and gentlemen, it is still, without question, the worst deal ever in history. And I'll just give you a few examples. We would still pay 39 billion quid of our taxpayers' cash. It's not government money, it's our money, and these politicians, they want to send it to Brussels, bungling bureaucrats, just for the right to have a chat. It doesn't even buy you a deal. You just have a chat. That's the first thing. We would still be subject for years and years to the hideous, the politically biased European Court of Justice. We'd be stuck in what they call a transition period. They say it would only be 14 months, but in truth they can extend it for another 2 years, and they'll probably extend it again. And during that time, one of the most important opportunities from Brexit, taking back control of our waters, we wouldn't have any control at all. Worse than that, European fishing vessels could literally plunder and pillage our waters, and there would be absolutely nothing we could do about it. And that is an absolute disgrace. We'd still be stuck in the customs union, so we wouldn't be able to reduce consumer prices on goods that we don't produce in this country. We wouldn't be able to get rid of daft EU rules and regulations, so we'd still have to suffer all those burdens and those costs. We wouldn't be able to use state aid to help and invest in crucial strategic national industries like British Steel. These are really, really important things. We'd be stuck, potentially forever. We'd also be suffering what's called the Common Foreign and Security Policy, whereby essentially we have to do what the EU says on foreign policy matters with third countries and international organisations, which means basically we haven't taken back control, we've lost control. And don't let anybody con you that, oh, it's okay, it'll be a few months and then we'll have a new deal. The heads of terms for a potential new deal all links back to this terrible withdrawal treaty. It's interlinked like a spider's web. We would literally, think of this image, we would be handcuffed forever. Forever, ladies and gentlemen, we would be handcuffed to the European Union. No voice, no veto, no say. That's why we want a clean break Brexit. And there is, of course, there is no one who understands this and who has fought for this longer than the 25 plus years that Nigel has battled courageously, bravely, through abuse, vitriol, threats to his security, the whole lot. He has battled away to get Brexit. Let's be very, very clear, ladies and gentlemen. Without Nigel, there wouldn't have been a referendum. Without Nigel, we wouldn't have got the successful Brexit vote. And without Nigel, there wouldn't be the vitally important Brexit Party here today. We owe him a huge debt of gratitude. Before we welcome Nigel to the stage, let's just remind ourselves when he's on form, on the video.
It's extraordinary to think that back in March of this year, all seemed lost from a Brexit perspective. We had a Labour and Conservative Party, both of whom were happy not to take us out of the European Union. And I felt that something absolutely fundamental had broken. Trust in politics, trust in our entire political system, and that is why I founded the Brexit Party, to restore that faith. What we've done already is we have completely reset the political agenda in this country, so much so that a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October is now by far the most popular option in this country.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Southport! Great to be here. What an amazing crowd. I think, for the numbers that have come here and filled up this auditorium, that something might be going on in this country at the moment. And I'll tell you what it is. It is absolute, total and utter contempt for a political class who have done their best to stop, to overturn, to delay the greatest democratic exercise in the history of our nation. We voted to leave the European Union and they have not delivered it, and that's why I am here today on this platform, not just with our elected MEPs, but with these men and women who will stand for the Brexit Party here in the North West at the next general election. You see, in many ways, if you think about it, back June the 23rd, 2016, and we've been told what a catastrophe it would be to vote Brexit. George Osborne, the Chancellor at the time, is that all George Osborne is worth? George Osborne told us 500,000 jobs would go immediately. Do you remember that? Yeah. President Obama came and told us we'd be at the back of the queue. Global leaders lined up to tell us that by just voting Brexit, disaster would befall us. And here we are 3 years on, I'm pleased to say, with employment at record levels in this country and wages going up. They were wrong. Dead wrong. But now, of course, as this next deadline of the 31st of October hoves into view, they're in full panic mode. Did you see this week? Operation Yellowhammer. God help us. Produced by a bunch of pen pushers in Whitehall, none of whom have ever worked in the private sector, none of whom have ever bought or sold or traded a good in their lives, predicting doom and disaster. And you know what? At no point, it isn't just Project Fear Mark II, sir. It's Project Fear times 2. That's what they're trying to do to us. But you know what? Operation Yellowhammer produced without ever, at any point, consulting with the authorities in Boulogne or Calais. The president of the Port of Calais tells us that even with a so-called no-deal Brexit, and by the way, can we stop saying no-deal Brexit? It's not a no-deal Brexit, it's a clean break Brexit, all right? And the president of those ports says there will be no extra delay as a result of Brexit whatsoever. We are being deliberately and willfully lied to, threatened, intimidated, not just by our civil servants, but just look at the behaviour this week of our politicians. Just look at what our parliament has sunk to under the speakership of one John Bercow. Sounds like I'm getting nearer the target here now, doesn't it? You wait till I mention Anna Soubry. But did you see the way our MPs behaved this week? Scuffles taking place behind the Speaker's chair. MPs holding up banners and placards. I thought I was looking at Bolivia or Colombia or the Third World. I expected at any moment a general with a funny moustache and a hat and a gun to walk in. But actually it isn't very funny, is it? Because we have one of the oldest, longest running parliaments in the world. We were the country that developed the very principle, the very concept of parliamentary democracy, and we sold it to the world as we decolonised post-1945. Ours was the model of government that the world looked up to. Ours was the parliament that the world respected. Ours was a country that many thought was still a great nation. And we now, with our democracy being traduced, are looked at on the world stage as a laughingstock. That is what our career political class have done to our country. I think the whole thing is a complete, total disgrace. Now, I'm here tonight in the Northwest, which in many ways sums up, the politicians here in the Northwest sum up what is going wrong in our country. As you know, we voted by 52% to 48. By the way, it wasn't close. It was a clear majority of 1.4 million. And remember, you'll get your chance. And remember, we were told by everybody, and in particular that government leaflet that David Cameron, whose memoirs are about to be published, I'm sure you'll all be queuing up to pay your 30 quid, I've no doubt about it. That leaflet Cameron put through every door in the home that said, this is your decision and we will abide by the result. They told us that. They then triggered Article 50, and 500 members of Parliament voted for Article 50, which said explicitly, we will leave the European Union on March the 29th with or without a deal. They then stood at a general election. Theresa May told us, it's like music hall here, isn't it? Theresa May told us no deal is better than a bad deal. The Labour Party promised us they would honour the referendum result. We have been promised again and again and again that our vote would be honoured, and come March the 29th, we had been betrayed, and that is why I set up the Brexit Party, because I think ordinary people, decent people, need to fight back against an establishment that have let this country down in the eyes of the rest of the world. Now here in the Northwest, 75% of constituencies here in the Northwest voted to leave in the referendum. And yet, of the 73 MPs that represent this region, every single one of them has either voted to stop us leaving on the 31st of October, or has voted for Mrs. May's treacherous treaty that sells out this country. There is not one MP here in the Northwest standing up for us to have a clean break Brexit from the European Union. Not one of them standing up for us to be a free, independent, self-governing nation, a normal nation, a nation that makes its laws, a nation that controls its borders, a nation that takes back its fishing waters, a nation that chooses its friends in the world, a nation that is confident about where we come from and what we want to hand on in terms of liberties and freedoms to our children. So if none of them are prepared to do it, do you know what? We in the Brexit Party are prepared to do it. The sheer level of betrayal in these northern constituencies by the Labour Party has to be seen to be believed. Constituency after constituency that voted leave, that is now represented by fanatical Remain MPs. The Labour Party is now run, dominated utterly from London, run by the Keir Starmers, run by poor old Richard, had the misfortune on Question Time last week of having to spend an hour sitting next to Emily Thornberry. I mean, how about that? Whose genius new policy. I mean, run your eyes along this one. Is that a Labour government will negotiate a new deal
put it to a referendum, and then campaign against it. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't make it up. No, there are 5 million voters out there who voted Brexit and then voted Labour in 2017. Many of them live in areas of the country like here in the northwest. They are no longer represented by the elite North London Labour Party, who are hell-bent on stopping Brexit from happening. And what of the Conservative Party? The party that stands on election after election making promises they never intend to keep. 3 manifestos in a row committing to cutting net migration to tens of thousands a year, and yet they never actually intended to do it. A Conservative Party who told us, in fact Theresa May told us 108 times, we'd be leaving on March the 29th. I mean, I must have had a fit of the vapours. I believed her once or twice. And now, of course, we've got Boris. But if it wasn't for the Brexit Party, Mrs May would still be there. Boris got his job because of the Brexit Party. And, to be fair, in the first couple of weeks, he did bring some energy and optimism to that job. Although compared with his predecessor, that wouldn't have necessarily been very difficult. But remember that Boris of a few months ago, the bravado Boris. He was going to deliver Brexit, deal or no deal, on October the 31st, do or die. You know, you keep nicking my lines. What am I supposed to do? Do or die. But it went further, as you quite rightly reminded me. Because I might have forgotten, obviously. Been in the green room too long. It then became full on, he'd rather die in a ditch than delay Brexit beyond the 31st of October. Now look, he has had a very, very tough time in Parliament. The Speaker's behaviour has been abysmal. He has been stabbed in the back by many of his own party, despite the manifestos upon which they were elected. The Philip Hammonds, the Dominic Grieves, and many others, including, of course, the ever-fragrant Anna Soubry. So I know he's been through a very, very tough time. And in fact, to be fair, he's been treated very badly, I think, by Parliament. But you may have noticed, I did put out an olive branch earlier this week. I did say, Boris, if you're sincere about leaving with a clean break Brexit, even though we are a well-organised, well-funded political party ready to fight the next general election, we would, in the interests of getting back the independence of our nation, be prepared at the next general election to put country before party and to work with you to get Brexit done. And that would mean a simple non-aggression pact. There are areas of the north, for example, where the Conservatives have never ever won a seat and never ever will win a seat, but where we, in the European elections, top the poll, where we, with the absence of a Conservative candidate, could unite the Leave vote to oust the Remainer Labour Party members. But what did I get? What did I get back for my trouble? What did I get back for my act, I think, of genuine generosity?
Because together, actually, Boris would win a large parliamentary majority. A parliamentary majority that would get Brexit done. And once Brexit's done, we could all go back to our normal parties. We could stay as Brexit, Labour could go home, the Tories could go home. It wouldn't matter. I made that offer, and all I got back from some junior pipsqueak press officer was the comment that I'm not a fit and proper person. Now, this may well be true, I don't know. But here's the point I want to make tonight. If Boris goes back to Brussels on the 17th of October to the next summit, and if he thinks by tweaking the Irish backstop and bringing back to the House of Commons Mrs. May's deal, which actually is a new EU treaty binding in international law, which, as Richard has said, there is no obvious escape from, that reduces us to not much more than being a colony of the European Union. It is the worst deal in history. And frankly, if that's what Boris wants to do, we will make sure the people of this country understand that it is a bad deal, it is the wrong deal, and if that's the way they want to go, that at the next general election, in the absence of being able to work with any of our established mainstream parties, I will say to you, the only political party in Britain that believes in our freedom, that believes in our independence, that believes in genuinely upholding that historic referendum result, the only party that thinks we have now got the chance to make our way with the Commonwealth, with America, with many other parts of the world that actually like us. That if that's how it has to be, then we will have to stand at the next general election. And you see the men and women around me tonight who'll be there leading that charge. And I would say to you, do not trust our career class politicians. Do not trust the Labour Party. Do not trust the Conservative Party. Don't even mention the Liberal Democrats. No, the only party you can trust, the only party with people who are doing this, not because they want careers in politics, but because they want our country to be free, are the men and women that stand and represent the Brexit Party. I tell you this, if Westminster politicians, if mainstream media, if the BBC, or whoever it is, if I'd paused, you'd really have booed, wouldn't you? If they all underestimate us, they don't understand. They don't understand the disconnect that now exists between Westminster and the rest of our great country. We are here. We are ready to fight. We are ready to do whatever it takes to get us out of this dreadful European political project, to get us back to where we should be as a nation, to restore faith in the very democracy that our forefathers fought and gave so much so that we could be free people living in a nation under democratic rule. So I would urge you, don't just come along here and agree with us. Be part of us. Help us. Let's spread this message. And together, through people power, we can win this, the most important political, constitutional battle this country has faced in 350 years. I have not spent 25 years of my life to see it betrayed by Boris or Corbyn or anybody else. I've been thrilled at the calibre of people in the short 22 weeks of our existence that have rallied to these colours, and leave here tonight knowing in your heart one thing: whatever tricks they try to play, whatever deceptions we read or see, the referendum let the genie out of the bottle. And we are going to win.
Isn't he great?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm ready. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are we all ready?
I think you can be comforted. I think you can be comforted that we're ready and that Nigel has the passion, the energy and the drive to ensure that we do leave. There is no doubt about that. Now, we've just got time for a few questions from people. The first one actually is from, well, it's more of a statement from, I think, Mr. Wheeler. And this is brilliant, actually. It's absolutely brilliant. No one in the media or unions seems to mention the huge financial boom and jobs boost that the proud heritage of the Liverpool docks and the North West will gain by the massive increase in trade in this area with a clean break Brexit. That is a fantastic, basic, obvious statement. Thank you, sir. They're coming in thick and fast. Nigel from Ormskirk. This is a great one. Should we take legal action against the Speaker? Well, the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we could find him because actually he's bottled it. He's doing a runner. Frankly, good riddance. The moment he heard that everybody was going to stand against him, he's bottled it. The next question, Alan from Wigan. This is a really good question and a serious question for Nigel. What are your thoughts on Brexit being a threat to the Good Friday Agreement?
Well, this, of course, has been raised again and again and again. Raised particularly by Monsieur Barnier, who, whatever you think of him, I have to say, I saw him in a coffee bar in Strasbourg back in February of this year. I said, Michel, I wish to God you were on our side, because he has completely outmanoeuvred Theresa May at every step of these negotiations, with, of course, the connivance of Ollie Robbins. Oh, I nearly forgot. I'm so sorry. Sir Ollie Robbins. You now get decorated, not just for failure, but for trying to sell out the country as well. The Good Friday Agreement, which did involve very significant compromises on both sides, and was not an easy thing for many in that community to swallow. And yet, the truth of it is, 20 years on, despite there are still problems, but the truth is 20 years on, Northern Ireland is a much, much better place than it was. You can walk through Belfast and go shopping and feel you're in a British city, which you couldn't back in the 1990s. The only reference to the European Union in the Good Friday Agreement is in the preamble. Nothing in the Good Friday Agreement is dependent upon EU membership. Everything in the Good Friday Agreement is dependent upon cross-border cooperation and a grown-up approach to the future. This argument, there would have to be a hard border. Well, already today, you have different income tax rates on both sides of the border, different excise duties on both sides of the border, a different corporation tax rate on both sides of the border, a different currency on both sides of the border. All this would mean, with a clean break, is different tariff rates both sides of the border. And nobody is going to build this border. Because if we leave with a clean break, the EU have said they will not be building a hard border. We have said we will not be building a hard border. Dublin have said they will not be building a hard border. Now, unless Donald Trump is coming over to build a wall, I don't know. But I think he's got a big enough one to build himself.
And actually the truth to this questioner is, I think what has happened with the whole Northern Irish question has been a willful attempt by Brussels to divide and conquer our nation, and to do so by actually virtually encouraging terrorism to take place on either side of that border. And I think honestly, the whole thing has been a disgrace. And, you know, we've had a common travel area for almost 100 years, a unique relationship between the United Kingdom and the Republic because of our shared history. The last thing we need are Brussels bureaucrats meddling in what for 20 years has been a good situation in Ireland. The sooner we leave and tell Barnier to butt out, the better.
Thank you. The next question is actually a slightly different angle to it, but it's really, really important. At the Brexit Party, one of the things that we really stand for is major political reform. And Jackie from Preston asked this serious question that she's concerned about reforming the voting system, especially the postal voting system, which is now an absolute corrupt disgrace on the stain of democracy in this country. Let me tell you a couple of simple facts. About 20 years ago, less than 2% of people used postal votes for good and genuine reasons. And then that nice gentleman, Tony Blair, he changed it to suit his own political purposes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, over 21% vote using postal votes. And you know what that leads to. And we saw it in the Peterborough by-election, when 29% of votes cast were postal votes. And if we get elected, we will change that. It has to stop. We have to go back to how it was.
Oh no, Richard, I can't let it go there.
Too easy.
I can't let it go there. That's postal voting. What about the House of Lords? I mean, unbelievable. We mentioned Ollie Robbins. What about Kim Darroch? Kim Darroch, who was our ambassador in Washington, who failed to establish any reasonable relationship with an American administration who were reaching out in many ways the hand of friendship to us, who, when it was exposed, had said the most appalling things about my friend over there, and was a disastrous, I mean literally disastrous ambassador in Washington. I can think of some that might have done a better job. But what happens to Kim Darroch? Oh, he's now Lord Darroch. Don't you go worrying about that. And the House of Lords now has 600 men and women appointed by Blair and Cameron. Their friends, their colleagues, people they were at university with, people that back their political parties financially. The whole thing stinks, and we should abolish the House of Lords.
This is what's got to change in this country. This is just completely unacceptable, this corrupt way that the elite currently govern and manage our country. The final question, John from Nelson asked Nigel, if Boris delivers Brino, that hideous withdrawal treaty, will the Brexit Party stay around to fix it?
Oh, thank you. If Boris Johnson tries to sell out this country at that European summit on the 17th and 18th of October and tries to come back and portray it somehow as a great victory as he waves a piece of paper, it will not be Brexit. It will be a total breach of trust with the British electorate. It will leave us trapped inside EU rules without any say. It will lead to years of acrimony. And it will lead to an argument in Britain that if we're subject to the rules and have no say, why don't we simply rejoin? That's what will happen. That's what will happen if this treaty goes through. I want to make this clear. I like Boris. I certainly prefer him to Jeremy Corbyn. But you never quite know what Boris really believes in. If Boris has the guts at the next election to do the right thing, we'll stand with him and make sure Brexit happens. I could be his best friend. But if he tries to sell us out with that new European treaty, I'll be his worst enemy. I'll fight him every inch of the way.
I think that is crystal clear. But it means that all of us have got to be prepared to stand up and to fight for our country. So let's have everyone on our feet, please, waving your placards. Are we ready? Yes! Are we ready? Yes! Are we ready? Yes! Have a very great trip home and a very good weekend. Thank you very much.